What's up, and welcome to another episode of Winged Octopus. This is Tyler here alongside some new customers. Rick, we have Kenny, and we have Matt, who has been on the podcast, and he's the blog owner. Matt, how you doing tonight in California?
Man, I've been busy, but you know what? All is well, all is good. I'm glad I'm on here talking some Red Wings hockey. I'm interested to get into it, so I'm ready. Is anyone else going to say anything?
Matt, I can't. Can I hear? I can't hear anything.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, okay, there we go. Some technical difficulties. Matt, I'm glad you're doing well in California, coaching some football out there and everything.
Yeah.
Rick, how you doing in Canada?
Not too bad. Getting ready for another Wings season. Pretty excited, pretty stoked.
Absolutely. Who can't wait for the season to start? And absolutely, I cannot wait either. Kenny, how you doing in Michigan?
I'm doing great. Getting over a cold, so finally happy to be over that, and I think dealing with schoolwork, so.
Never fun. Never fun. Not schoolwork, and certainly not being sick. So tonight, we got some topics here. We're getting close to the season. Training camp is over. Now they're in the preseason games. They're 0-2, aren't they now? So that they lost to Boston when I was there because I have horrible luck in Boston, and then they lost in Pittsburgh last night in overtime, and they're playing right now against Chicago. So
they're losing 2-0 right now to Chicago.
Oh, of course they are. Of course they are. What else is new? But we're going to get right into it. So, first we're going to talk about the youth of the Detroit Red Wings. That's certainly a positive here. They have some good prospects, and they have certainly some good youth players on the squad right now. Obviously, one that still has not signed because of whatever reason. Hopefully that gets solved at some point. But I'm actually just going to throw it out to you, Rick. What player are you looking forward to see the most this year, whether it be a prospect or not even this year? Let's just say, what player are you looking forward to seeing, whether it be a prospect or it be a player on the team right now?
I got to say it's Anthony Mantha. I think the big guy's going to have a monster season going into RFA next off season. He's got to have a monster season. 60 games last year, 17 goals. What's he going to do with 80 to 82 games? The guy's just a beast. The size, he's added some weight. He's hopefully gotten rid of some of the bad habits that Coach Blashill didn't like last year. He come into camp, they're already talking glowing things about him, far removed from Jimmy DiVillano's comments a couple of years ago. Going into a contract year, he wants to see some big dollars on that contract. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a monster season. I'd like to see 35, 40 goals out of him this year. Maybe 60, 70 points. I think isn't out of the realm of possibility. And if they've got the solid lines that they're talking about, and Blashill allows them to get some chemistry going, what do you say? Like, Larkin's going to be there, and you're going to have Mantha on the same line. It's not like these two guys can't perform. So I'm really looking forward to a monster season at Anthony Mantha. And I got to be honest, like, I've got a heavy investment into his cardboard product. So I'm really hoping to see a nice return on investment there too. So yeah, I'm looking forward to Mantha. I think he's going to be a monster this year. There's no way about it. I think he's got to have a monster season.
Absolutely. The spare part, Jimmy DiVillano called him, I think it was 2 years ago now. That spare part is a damn good hockey player, and in person, he's a damn good guy to talk to. What a damn good guy he is. Matt, who are you looking forward to see the most?
Oh man, there's a host of players I'm looking forward to as far as with young players because of I'm interested to see how our future is. But honestly, I'm excited to see Larkin, actually, if I can use Larkin.
Of course you can use
Okay,
Larkin.
so I'm excited to see Larkin and his progress because kind of had a little sophomore slump last year. I mean, his first year he was an all-star. You know, second year he kind of has a sophomore slump. So I'm interested to see how the progress of his third year goes. I could actually, while I can sit up here, I can pick Mantha. I can pick Mantha all I want and everything. But I feel like with Larkin, especially if they move him to center, how is his progress going to be as a center? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How is his progress going to happen in his third year? How is he going to adjust to the game? So to me, I'm more interested to see him because I feel like the center position, a top 6 center position, relies on what he can do. You know, because Zetterberg is towards the end of his career. I mean, Darren Helm, no, he's not a future. He's more of a vet. So you really have to pick Larkin here. You know, if he doesn't succeed well at center, then you're back at step 1 at the center position. You know, it'll be great if he's a forward, if he could score from a forward position and stuff. But at center, we have to see what's what. You know, if he don't do well, then what?
I absolutely agree with you. Larkin is far and away the correct answer here. I mean, obviously, there's no correct answer, but if I were to pick a correct answer, that would definitely be one. And yeah, he's got to be someone that they're going to rely on, and they're going to rely on him heavy. And I think he's going to deliver. He looked really good the other night in Boston when I was there. He was back checking. He was winning faceoffs. He looked really good in Boston. He looked really fast. Even my friend that I went to the game with that doesn't watch a lot of Red Wings hockey, he's like, man, that 71 kid flies. Yeah, he does fly. And, it'd be very interested to see him play this year. Kenny, what's your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I was going to say Larkin as well. I mean, pretty much basically what Matt covered. And I think one thing I'll add on him was also just his size. And I think to me, he's still a pretty small kid compared to like some of the bigger players and everything. So, I mean, he hasn't really let his size affect him too much so far, but I think that it might come back. I think that he should maybe bulk up a little bit more, just so he can like hang with them. I think so. Yes, like it could differ from that, and I think. But I mean, like the other person I was thinking about would be Tyler Bertuzzi, and I think
good one
with the Griffins, and I think that he'll make the Wings at some point with the Wings at some point during the season. I don't think he'll make it out of beyond the team out of
training
preseason, but eventually like he'll end up playing with the Wings. I think that it will be more than just a call up because of an injury, and I think that he'll perform well down in Grand Rapids. And I think that he'll produce well up with the Wings also.
I think that you're on the right track with Bertuzzi. The only place where I disagree with you, and I could be wrong, we both could be wrong here, is I think that he will make the team right out of training camp. I think he's already earned his Wings. He's with the team a little bit last year. He played really good with Grand Rapids in the AHL. For their Calder Cup run, and I think he's done everything he's had to do there in Grand Rapids. So I think you're on the right track though with Bertuzzi. I do think that he's going to be a big part of this team, moving forward. I don't know if he's going to be a goal scorer. I guess that remains to be seen, but he's definitely going to be a good, third or fourth liner, depending. He could even be a second liner at some point.
I think with Bertuzzi, I think he could be a good third, fourth liner because he's a scrappy guy.
Yeah, he is.
I think second line is kind of a push there.
Well, then you do have Abdelkader playing first line, and he's not.
he
the
shouldn't be
greatest
playing.
player either. So
He shouldn't have been playing first line to begin with. I mean,
I agree with
he's
you.
more of a third, fourth line guy, but they had nobody to park in front of the nets, and Abdelkader became the de facto. I'm gonna park this guy. I'm gonna park in front of the net, and he's not that player.
He's not that player. I agree with you. He was good when Datsuk was there, and
everybody was good when Datsuk
Yeah.
was there.
I was going to say Datsuk was a special player.
Everybody
but
was
like
good
I said,
when Datsuk was there.
But there were also players that couldn't play with Datsuk. Like if you remember, Tatar Nyquist never really played with Datsuk that much. It was Abdelkader a lot, and it was Helm a lot. He made those kind of players better players where, Tatar and those guys, he didn't really play a lot with those guys. I think he played more with Tatar than he did with Nyquist. So, I mean, I do agree with you, though. I mean, Abdelkader is obviously not a first liner or even a second liner. He's a third or fourth liner on a good team. But we're actually going to go ahead and move on to another positive here. The goaltending. You got Peter Mrazek, who is coming off a really bad year. Hopefully that's some motivation. There was a contract situation, or not a contract situation. The Red Wings exposed him at the expansion draft to the Vegas Golden Knights. They didn't end up taking him. And then you got Jimmy Howard, who played really good last year. So hindsight would say that you got two guys that could be starters. I just want to get your thoughts on that, Kenny.
As everyone probably knows by now, I'm a Mrazek fan. That's whose jersey I'm wearing right now. But I think for the situation that they're in, play who's ever playing the hot hand, because if Howard's playing the hot hand, then fantastic. I love when Howard plays great, but he can go into streaks that are just absolutely awful. And I think in which case, then obviously I would say play Mrazek. I think. But another question for me is, and how long can Howard stay healthy? Because each of the last 3, maybe 4 seasons, he's gone out at some point for a time with an injury and everything. So it also comes down to whether or not Howard can stay healthy.
I think it even comes down to health for Mrazek as well, and also it comes down to consistency, because I love Mrazek, I love Howard. I'm the kind of fan that whichever goalie's going good, I'm behind. I'm behind it.
Exactly.
I'm behind these boys, besides Erickson, because he can just get the hell out. But for the most part, I'm behind both of these goalies. But just a follow-up question to you, who do you think is going to start for the Red Wings the bulk of the time this year?
Out of training camp and out of preseason, I think that Howard would be the number one goalie just based upon his performance at the end of last season and even before he got injured last season. And also just, like you said, Mrazek had a really down year last year, and I think that it'll be, I guess it's not really, wouldn't be a punishment to him for him to start off as this number 2, but it will definitely be a motivator for him starting off as the number 2, and that way then motivating him to play better and winning back that number 1 spot.
Absolutely. Yeah, without a doubt. Matt, I want to get your thoughts on the goalie situation.
Well, I'm gonna be real with you. I'm behind whoever's the hot hand. Everyone who knows me, who followed me for a long, long time, knows that I've been behind Jimmy Howard until Jimmy Howard couldn't perform. I'm behind whoever can perform. So that's where I agree with Kenny. I think Howard is going to have his number. I think Howard is going to have his number called at the beginning of the season. You'll see Mrazek come in there every now and then. My issue with Mrazek has been the reports of the attitude issue. I don't know how accurate those reports are. I'm not going to say they're accurate. I'm not going to say they're not accurate. But this is where I think Howard has to kind of prove, or not Howard. This is where Mrazek just has to prove himself. This is where he has to prove himself, because it's not going to come easy. It's not expected to come easy for him,
Absolutely not.
But I don't mind, having 2 goalies, guys who have a potential to start, I think that's great. I just think, I think it's a great situation to have, honestly. Both guys, we know what both guys have a potential to do. What Kenny brought up, and this is what I agree with them too, is the health of Jimmy Howard. I think the health of Jimmy Howard plays into his performance, because we've seen before when he gets hurt, he goes into his own head and he don't perform well because he's hurt. We've seen the same thing with Mrazek. Remember, Mrazek pulled his groin at Stadium Series of I want to say
2015.
2015.
Yeah.
He pulled his groin at Stadium Series and he hasn't been right since, So it's kind of a thing where we have one goalie perform while the other one gets hurt and he goes into his own head, and then it kind of alternates, you know what I mean? So we'll see how it goes. I don't think Caro is really ready. And, of course, they brought back McCollum, but I don't think McCollum is I don't know what's going to go on with McCollum. I don't know if that was more of an insurance ploy or anything, but –
well, I think
this is a good situation to have, because you don't know, because the guys you have at goalie, you don't know if they're ready or not.
I just want to throw out there, and I don't know if a lot of people know this, but Jared Coro actually has to go through waivers. So I think that's one of the reasons why they picked up Tommy McCollum again, because they don't know if they're going to be able to keep Jared Coro. I mean, Jared Coro is one of those goalies that, he played pretty good when he was in there with the Wings. He was good with Grand Rapids, obviously. But they can lose him for nothing if he doesn't make
to cut you off there for a little bit, Tyler. And I'm going to keep this short because I want to hear what Rick has to say. To cut you off there, that's going to depend on what team needs a backup goalie. You know what I mean? Now, maybe the Kings might do it. The Kings might pick him up. I have a feeling maybe LA might do it because they need a backup goaltender. And after Quick, then I don't know who else is there to back him up. So I mean, there's that. I don't think there's that many. I don't think there's that many teams who really need a goaltender like that to pick him up off of waivers.
Yeah, I mean, with Jared Caro, it's like if you lose him, you lose him. There's really nothing you can do because you have Howard and Mrazek. They're both basically starters or fringe starters, I guess you could call it. But Rick, I want to get your thoughts on it because we've gone on here.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say that Jimmy Howard's a fringe starter. I think over his career, we've seen what he can do. He's an all-star. Obviously, the last few years, we've had an awful lot of injury problems with Howard. I like the game that Mrazek was talking about, and I liked the fact that he came into camp with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder and something to prove, but tonight his .800 save percentage is not screaming number one material, so I'm not overly impressed with that. The Jared Coro situation there is, I don't think his body of work in the NHL is strong enough that we're looking at a guy that's going to be snagged off of waivers really quickly. The AHL body of work and the Calder Cup and everything like that, that's all fine and dandy, but there was a lot of good goalies that were available at the expansion draft, and so Coro obviously didn't get grabbed there. But it's a situation where you never know. Like the Kings backup situation, it's one where Coro might fit there. There may be a couple of different spots where he fits. I'm kind of perplexed with the whole Tommy McCallum thing. Like, I know that we had Jake Patterson sitting down in the ECHL. I don't know why he didn't get re-signed and why they made the move for McCollum, because Jake Patterson, I got a chance to see a lot of him here in Kitchener when he was with the Rangers in the OHL. The guy's lights out. I don't know whether his development stalled or whatnot, but I like to think that the goaltending is a little bit stronger than what we've seen. But Howard's got to stay healthy. I think that's one thing that Kenny said. And Mrazek's got to step up his game, and he's got to be able to find a way to make a save like we seen a couple of years ago in the Tampa series where he almost stole it for us.
He did almost steal that series. He really did. We can all agree that the goalie situation is a pretty positive subject. There's a lot of depth there, but we are going to segue into something else. We were talking about some of the young players, and now we're actually going to move into how this is a big season for Andreas. Well, not Andreas Athanasiou because he's not signed yet, but Anthony Mantha, Dylan Larkin, and Peter Mrazek as well. So, they're all going into contract years, and that could be motivation. Matt, I just want to get your thoughts on that, please.
Well, the fact that they're going into contract seasons could be huge because, one, they're restricted free agents. They're going to be restricted free agents. So they're going to be playing not only to stay on the team, but also possibly get a offer sheet maybe to somewhere else to catch a team's eye. Now, how the way they play, I think they're going to up their game. I think they have no choice but to up their game, especially if Detroit has any hope of winning or anything, of making it back to the playoffs. It hinges on what these guys can do. Now, that also, I think this is where Detroit is going to monitor this situation because their cap space, they got to create some cap space because it's going to take a pretty penny to keep these guys. You can't just sign these guys to prove it, contracts. These guys earn their keep, and if they perform very well this season, they're going to show that they earn their keep. So you're going to have to clear up some cap space. So that means guys like Helm, Green, guys with big contracts, they might be on the move just to clear some space to sign these guys.
Thankfully, Green's off the books after this year, so.
Yes.
Yeah. They might end up trading him at the deadline, actually, no matter what happens, whether they're in it or not.
I think if they're in it, they hold on to him. I know this is a separate subject, but if they're in it, you hold on to him, let his contract expire because you're in it, and that's just a Ken Holland thing to do. But if they're not in it, I think they're going to make a hard push to trade him, maybe for a first round and a second rounder. Maybe that could be the case. I could see that happening. But that depends on Holland and if he tries hard to make that move.
It depends on the market, too. Last year we thought Vanek would get us a first-round pick, and he didn't. But
he should have got a second rounder because everyone was overpaying. But that's just your front office and your general manager not knowing how to be a general manager, and their front office not knowing how to be a front office.
Yeah, but he got a good return on the Brendan Smith trade, right? So
he got a great return.
That was a good return. Like for Brendan Smith, you weren't expecting that much back, and Vanek's very much a one-dimensional player, so Florida wasn't going to sell the farm, and they were also a fringe team for the playoffs. Look, they missed after all, anyways, right? So, that was the point that I'm just as much the one to jump on the let's lynch Kenny Holland bandwagon. I think I've written a couple articles that are ready to take him out and tie him to the stake and tie him up by his toenails and whatnot. Like, I'm the first one to jump on the bandwagon there and say, Ken Holland's run his course and we need some fresh blood in that chair. But,
Steve Yzerman, if you're listening to this, please.
We only wish, right? We only wish that Stevie Y was come on, guys. We know that Stevie's not coming back. He's got a good thing in Tampa.
Well, he does have a contract coming up. He does have his contract. His contract is actually up after this year. And so is Holland. So that'll be very interesting to see if, Stevie Y wants to come back as a general manager. But we do want to stay on this subject because I want to get other people's thoughts. Rick, I want to get your thoughts on the young situation here that they have with Larkin, Mantha, and Mrazek.
Well, again, like I said, Mrazek's got to show a little bit better than what he's shown so far in the preseason. His last season wasn't very good. He's playing on a contract year, $4 million cap hit. It doesn't look good when you're not performing very well And like, let's face facts. Like, I'm sure that Chicago's got some regulars in the lineup tonight. Just taking a look here quick. That Patty Kane's in the lineup, and Duncan Keith, and Brandon Saad's in the lineup.
Schmaltz is in the lineup too.
Like, we've got a bulk of kids in there. The defense on tonight, we've got Erickson and Green in there, and a bunch of the Jensen's in, and a bunch of the kids. So it's not like we've got a regular NHL roster there, but Mrazek's really got to step up his game, and if he expects he's going to get a raise on $6 million, like from $4 to maybe $5 or $6 million into Howard territory, it's not looking very promising. He's got to find that right frame of mind, and they got to figure out something. I don't know what happened, but I think it's probably the goaltending coach, the change when they let Jimmy Bedard leave, and Jimmy kept him. Jimmy Bedard did a good job with Mrazek. Again, I said it before with Mantha. I'm expecting a monster season out of him. I'm expecting a solid season out of Larkin. Larkin, don't forget, Larkin came off a really good World Championship at the end of last season. He did perform really well in that World Championship team. So I think that it's safe to say that 2/3 of the trio there are going to probably do fairly well. Ken Holland's obviously left the team hamstrung on the cap side of things, unless he's willing to take some buyouts. I wrote an article about that too, about the buyouts and the money that he could have cleared off the books. With Green falling off, you got $6 million there. You've got $4 million on Mrazek, unless they find another solution there, or he takes a pay cut, which I don't think his ego lets him. But I think that they're going to end up having to sign those two young guys, Larkin and Mantha, both the bridge deals, till they get some of these toxic contracts off the books. Like, I heard Erickson earlier, as much as you guys love to lynch him, he wasn't that bad. He was a plus player last year, but they had a lot of toxic contracts on that team. And Holland, again, we need fresh blood in the front office. That's where it boils down to. But the kids are promising. But it's going to ultimately be I'm hoping it's not going to be another situation like what we got with Anthony Ciu this year, where we're bickering over $600,000, because that's what last I'm hearing. He wants 2.5 and they're offering 1.9. So
just take the damn contract. That we're not going to get into this tonight, but I'm sick and tired of the young players whining over $600,000 or another, just a small amount of money. I mean, obviously it's a big amount of money, but in the hockey world, it's a small amount of money. Just take it, earn what you deserve, and move on. And it's a
different time. It's a different time. Everybody's looking for paydays, you know what I mean? And I understand it's more of prove it and stuff. And I agree with you, actually, Tyler. Just to say, I agree with you. But we are in a point in time where certain players feel they are entitled to certain contracts, and these GMs overpay them for these contracts. I think
Leon Draisaitl.
I think hockey and baseball are the two sports where you see young players, or where you see players get overpaid.
I agree.
Where you see them get overpaid.
So I do want to stay on this subject. Kenny, what are your thoughts on the young players?
I mean, I guess kind of similar to what Rick was saying. And I think, obviously, I would expect Mantha and Larkin to have big seasons to rebound. And I think I can't really say what I expect Mrazek to have a bounce back. I think that he will, and I think just because he has something to prove, and I think to prove that he's not just an 800 save percentage type of guy, and I think that he is like a 9,200 and a 93% save guy. I think that, like I said earlier, I think that he'll prove that he's worth a lot again. And I think that it's going to probably put him in it's going to put the team, the Wings, in a bad spot in the offseason, because if he does, because he's going to probably, because like Matt was saying about the attitude, whether it's true or not, if it is true, he's probably going to hold out for a lot of money, unfortunately, if he does like have a really great season. So, I mean, I guess it comes down to the veterans and their cap space.
I'm not sure what you do at that point. You know, if Mantha and Larkin and Athanasi, and I want to keep saying Athanasi, but Mrazek all have good years.
Then you gotta figure out how to clear that room.
Pay them all.
And you gotta pay them. You got to figure out how to clear that cap space, because you need those young players.
Absolutely.
So you got to figure out how to get rid of these toxic contracts and sooner. You know, like I said, the front office kind of hurt themselves giving these toxic contracts. I mean, we're looking at it now. Look how much and I'm not stopping with the veterans like Helm and Erickson and and Cronwall and all them, but look at Abdelkader. Look at the contract he got. Look at the contract that what's his face, Glendening got. You know, these
or Erickson, for that matter.
Yeah, well, I said Erickson too earlier.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, but look at these contracts that they're getting, that they have or that they've gotten. You know, everyone is like, we got to clear these contracts. You got 3 young players, possibly 4 if you want to count Anthony Ciu. You got these young players who play vital parts in your, on your team, a huge vital part on your team, and you got to sign them. And if they have a big year, you got to pay them. Now you got to clear space. You got to figure out how to trade these contracts. You got to figure out how to get rid of these contracts. You had the chance to do it.
Don't forget,
you had the chance to do
there's so many of those.
Oh, go ahead.
Don't forget though that there's so many of those contracts that have got no trades on them, eh? Because I just actually pulled up Cap Friendly, another one. We got Franz Nielsen with a no move clause in his, Nyquist with a no trade clause, Abdelkader with a no trade clause, Helm with a no trade clause, Mike Green no trade, so they're gonna have to get him to waive it at the deadline. De Kaiser no trade, Cronwall no trade and 2 years left on one knee. Erickson, no trade. And they bring in Daly, and they even Daly's contract at 3.2. That's a decent number for a guy who's 33, but he's got a no trade. Howard's got a no trade. So we talk about trades, but who are you going to trade these guys to? When are they going to waive their no trade clauses? Right?
I'm sure some players would if they go, if the Ken Holland goes his separate ways or he gets promoted and basically given an office spot, and they're just paying him, and he's not really making decisions anymore. I think that they would definitely go into somewhat of a rebuild, and at that point, you'd have to go to guys like Jimmy Howard, be like, hey, we really thank you for your time, but I think it's time for, there to be a rebuild here. Can you waive your no trade clause? Jimmy Howard actually already said that he would do that.
Now, here's an issue too. Now that Rick, and I'm glad Rick brought up the no trade clause thing, because a lot of players, they want to stay because of their contract, because they want to get paid. But another thing that I'm thinking of now is Detroit got to eat some of these contracts. They got to eat half of these contracts, or a good chunk of these contracts, or a certain amount of these contracts, in order for the trade to go through. Unless you find somebody with cap space who will take the whole contract, but
you can only eat half.
Going to happen.
And you can only do that for
exactly
a few of them. I think you can only do it for 2. So,
well, as I say, because like kind of what Matt was just saying, I believe that when the Tigers traded Verlander, that they still have to eat some of his contract, and it was the same with when the Tigers traded Prince Fielder, they ate a lot of his contract still because of the money, and I think so.
Well, unfortunately, in hockey, like I said, you can only do that for 2 a year, and you can only do up to 50% of it. You can't do the whole thing. And, you know, that really sucks, but there's a hard cap in the NHL. And we're going to move on after this. There's a hard cap in the NHL. And there's no way to manipulate it like in football or like in baseball or like in basketball. Right. You can't manipulate it. It's a hard cap. Once you get to that number, whichever players that you don't have signed either go somewhere else or they get offer sheeted or whatever. So, I mean, that's just where you're at in the NHL. There's literally no room. You have to rebuild at some point.
Right. But believe that with Lupul.
So we're gonna move on to the next subject here. It's actually our last subject. It's a very positive thing here. You know, the Red Wings, while it was sad that Joe Louis Arena is closing and that the Twitter handle is you know, going inactive and they're going to delete it and they're going to put a wrecking ball to Joe Louis Arena at some point. There are some positives that come out of, you know, Joe Louis Arena no longer being the home arena of the Detroit Red Wings. They have state-of-the-art facilities now. They have a brand new arena. You know, they got a training. They got a rink underneath it. You know, it's unbelievable what they've done at Little Caesars Arena. Now, Rick brought up a very interesting point as we were prepping for this, how this could attract free agents. And I happen to agree with them. I just want to get your thoughts, Matt and Kenny. Matt, you go first, and then Kenny will go second. What are your thoughts on that possibly, you know, attracting free agents?
I think it will. I think it'll do a great job attracting free agents. Look, I've always said free agents really shouldn't pay attention to new facilities, or it shouldn't really matter, but it really does because it helps with your strength conditioning, your rehabbing, your injuries. You know, you want to see all the new stuff. And Joe Louis Arena, you know, at least in my first and only time going there, I could see why they needed a new arena. And so with them going into their, you know, going into this new arena, I think it'll attract free agents. You know, you got a state-of-the-art facility. You got a brand new arena, a brand new spanking arena. You got the history of Detroit, of the Red Wings there. I mean, why not? If I was a free agent, I mean, it will attract me to go because I want to play in a new arena, but it'll help. It'll help big time.
I agree with what Matt said. I guess like the biggest thing would be whether or not to have the cap space to sign the free agents. But brand new arena is gonna be extremely nice. Like I said earlier this week on Twitter, I'm so happy we don't have to go to the bathroom in a freaking trough anymore. Finally, they have updated bathrooms. But
I know exactly how you feel. I went and I was like, dude, what is this?
Those were so bad. But but I mean, like, I know that they said, like, I haven't been yet, but I know that they have like 2 different concourses, both twice as wide as Joe Louis or the Palace. I think, which is going to be nice because then you're not bumping into people as you're trying to walk about and everything. With like the scoreboard or the jumbotron and everything being the biggest in the NHL, NBA, and everything. And I think that I think it's a good thing that they are sharing, that the Pistons are sharing it with the Red Wings ultimately, because I think that ultimately having all 4 teams in downtown will really help Detroit overall. And I think even more than what the Ilitch family has already done to help Detroit and everything.
So I just want to throw my thoughts out there. I think it will help attract free agents. I also just want to say that I cannot wait to get to the new arena. I'm going to opening night, as you guys have heard. But I'm really excited to see, you know, the acoustics. I've already heard someone that went to the Kid Rock concert and said that, you know, it was awesome. You know, it was really loud. You know, the seating in the upper bowl is very steep, and that'll put you over the ice, and it's almost gives you like a Joe Louis Arena feel. So I do think it can help attract free agents, because Rick, you were talking about free agents not wanting to come to Detroit, not just because of Mike Babcock, but because of the rundown facility. Maybe not even just Joe Louis Arena, but like the weight room, and not having a pool, and not having big facilities, and not having a practice arena.
All that.
Now you have all that. There should be no excuse anymore. As long as you have a competent coach and a competent general manager, there should be no reason why you can't get free agents. But it's going to take a while because there's some bad contracts on there. Rick, I just want to get your thoughts quickly.
Well, just take a look at what happened out in Edmonton. Like, sure, we don't have a Connor McDavid on the horizon. Larkin hasn't performed like Connor McDavid at any stretch yet. But you take a look, and what did that do, having that brand new Rogers Center out in Edmonton? Look, it landed the Milan Lucic, right? They brought in a bunch of new guys because these guys wanted to sign with a team that looked like they were going someplace. So, yeah, sure, we're gonna bottom out a little bit. We're gonna have a couple of stinker seasons, I think, realistically, with the kids on the horizon. And once we get some goaltending help, I think it's gonna be stable and healthy and perform. But those guys are all gonna want to start looking at Detroit a little bit more seriously, because you hear guys in the past saying, yeah, we came to Detroit because, yeah, we know the ownership treats us well. We know that there's the history. But now you got a brand new building on top of it. You got state-of-the-art everything. So once all of this finally hits rock bottom, and we're dragging the riverbed here for our first overall draft picks, and there's a franchise player on the horizon that we can grab and pump into our system that's going to be an Austin Matthews or a Connor McDavid type player. I'm not saying we're going to get one of those guys, but if you get somebody like that, and you got a new building, and you've got some of these contracts that have run their course, like Cronwall, he's done in 2 years, but he may ride the LTIR train all the way through, the same as Franzen. But once you start clearing that cap space out, you watch and see. The cap space will get cleared out. You got a brand new building. People are going to go, oh, Original Six, it's Detroit. We know the ownership treats us well. Why not sign with Detroit? Because eventually it comes back around. Edmonton's in that cycle right now. Detroit's going to get into that cycle too, just the same as Toronto's going through that cycle where they're getting a bunch of their contracts off the books, and they're getting some good some real depth talent there, and they got some superstars. Then they're going to get those free agents that are going to come in. Look, Patrick Marleau just signed 3 years. I think a little bit too much, but they still got a Patty Marleau. What's that say? And you look at Lucic out in Edmonton. These things help.
Those are very good comparisons. Basically, there's one other thing I actually just wanted to bring up very quickly. I'm just going to go down the list real quick. If all things go right, and we're sticking to the positives here. If all things go right, players have career years, all that. Where do you think the Red Wings can finish, Rick?
I'm trying to be optimistic. I think it's a fringe playoff team at best right now. Realistically, though, I think that they're, Babcock said a lot of it the same when he went to Toronto. There's going to be a lot of pain. Those were his words, a lot of pain. And I think we're in that same phase right now. Long term, the projections aren't there for a real stud franchise type player like a McDavid or a Matthews that's in the pipeline right now for at least the next 2 years. But
that can change.
Yeah, who's to say somebody doesn't develop, right? We've got guys in the system. You see them perform. You guys were talking about Bertuzzi earlier. Take a look at what his numbers were like in Guelph. Take a look at how they've translated from Guelph from the OHL with the Storm. He was an offensive guy there too. He wasn't a big monster scorer. He wasn't McDavid at 150 points in the season, but Anthony Mantha was that guy in the QFJL, right? So to say he can't be that guy in Detroit. So maybe we've already got the franchise guy sitting there. Realistically, though, I'd love to say we could be challenging for a playoff spot. Realistically, I'm saying we're probably going to be out again. But we've had 25 damn good years. What more do you want? As as a guy who's 43 years old, I've seen the cups, I've seen the playoff streak, and I knew that this was going to happen at some point in time. You guys are, young and, maybe you don't know any other different. Hey, I'm not slagging you guys, but come on, like.
You got to be realistic. You got to be realistic.
Do any of you guys actually remember what it was like before? Like, do you remember anything but?
We weren't alive.
I wasn't born. I wasn't born.
Yeah, you guys were all young.
I was born. I was actually born when the streak started. So
there you go. See, that's what I'm saying. So we got a couple of years, probably realistically, with no playoffs. But you know what?
They could sneak in one of these years, though.
What's that?
They could sneak in one of these years.
They could. I do.
And it would be beneficial, in my opinion, because you do have Mantha, Larkin, and realistically, possibly Athanasiou, and you want to see those guys get some playoff experience. You don't want to see those guys, floating at the bottom of the division, at the bottom of the league, and then they walk as free agents. Then what? Now you're screwed. So.
The way that the game is today, though, like these guys never get to free agency unless they just become so disenfranchised, and that goes right back to that brand new building that they're playing in, right?
That's true. That's very true.
6 and the history and the brand new building and the top of the line, everything that the Illiches have put into that new sparkly new building that they're going to break in, right? So it's going to be hard for those guys to want to leave unless they just continue to go and stink the place out. But I think that starts when the general manager's gone and Kenny Holland goes and takes a balcony seat to watch and they put somebody in there with a fresh mind, right? So I'm going to give it to you guys, and you guys can tell me what you think, because I've been babbling too long here.
Matt, what's your opinion? If everything goes well, everyone plays the way they should play, maybe even above and beyond where the Wings can finish.
Well, everyone knows I have not been optimistic on this team for for a minute now. I really have not been that very optimistic, but I'm going to be very optimistic here, and hear me out. If everything goes well, if the team is healthy, so if Detroit's healthy, team is healthy, and if everybody's playing to their potential, they could realistically, they could be at most. They could be maybe, I'm going to want to say, third or second in the division. And I know that's a reach, but hear me out here. The reason why I say that, the reason why I bring that up and I say that, because if you look at the Atlantic Division, all right, we mentioned Toronto, Montreal, who I think is going to take the division, but we mentioned Toronto, Tampa, Ottawa. Who else am I forgetting in that division?
Toronto. Boston.
Oh, Boston. I said Ottawa. So, or I said Boston. I said Ottawa.
Buffalo.
Not quite Buffalo yet. I'm not going to bring up Buffalo yet. Few years, but not Buffalo yet.
Well, I thought you meant the division as an entirety. I'm sorry.
But if we look at those 4 teams, it could go either way. We don't know what to expect from Toronto going forward. We know that they'll get better going forward, but who knows where they will truly go? You know what I mean? So there's that. Tampa, we don't know what will happen with Tampa. They have a new goaltender now, so we don't know how that goes. You know what I mean? Even though they still pretty much have the same team, but we don't know how that goes. So there's that. Ottawa is just sometimes a big unknown. You don't know what you get from Ottawa. Either they're a third place team or they're a wild card team. So, I mean, realistically, Detroit, if they play well and if they're healthy, if they play very well and if they're healthy, they're arguably the third best team in the Atlantic. They're the third best team in the Atlantic. But how was I going to put this? But at the same time, being realistic here, if they make a playoff, I think a wild card's a possibility. But I honestly think if we're being real, they're the third best team if they play to their potential, because you're talking about Nielsen, you're talking about the top 6 line, all right? You're talking about that top 6 playing well, and you're talking about the defense playing well too, on top of Mrazek or Howard being on top of their game. That's a top 3 Atlantic team right there if all goes well. But knowing Detroit and history with injuries and all that,
well,
I'm just saying it's not a daunting division. The Atlantic is not a daunting division as many make it out to be, because people say, well, there's Ottawa and then Toronto got better, and until they start doing this crap consistently, it's not daunting. It's not a daunting division to me.
Yeah, you're right. No, you're certainly right. Kenny, I want to get your thoughts.
I mean, like I agree with Matt. If everyone stays healthy and they all play to their potential, they're definitely a good team. But honestly, realistically, I see them hovering right around 500 for the season. And I think as they try to figure out the team chemistry and everything, but also, like, one thing I want to just touch on quickly is the thing about the new arena is that you have to sell it too, like, to like the veterans. And I think, like, yes, obviously if they know that it's new with new equipment, but you still have to be able to sell it to them. And I think, but I think so that just it's not something different. But I guess so. I mean, like, I think honestly, like I said, I'll hover right about 500 in my opinion. And I think maybe slightly above 500. And I think I don't see them making the playoffs this year. And I think if they do, it'd probably be if they do, it would be as an 8th seed, as a wild card. But realistically, no. There's not. I'd be very surprised if they made the playoffs.
I happen to agree with you, although I like to be more optimistic than most people. So I will say, I've said it before, I'll say it again. If they play to their potential, and that means everyone's playing well, everyone's doing what they got to do, they're a playoff team. I don't know how far they'll go, but they're a playoff team. They got some good players. They got some good up-and-coming young players. And, you look at teams like Toronto. Yes, they have Austin Matthews, but they also have Mitchell Marner, and they also have William Nylander, and they have some good young players. The Red Wings fans are asking themselves, why isn't that us? Why isn't Mantha and Larkin and Athanasiou like that? Shouldn't that be us?
Because you got a guy who is not playing them the correct amount of minutes, and you got a front office who is not getting them. You got a front office who just
spare part.
Yeah, right. You got front office calling them spare parts and all this other stuff. Look, in order for them to get that type of success, you got to let them play. You have to let them play. Yep. You got to go, look, veterans, sit down unless you're Zetterberg, you know what I mean? Unless your name is Zetterberg or something, and then you deserve to be you deserve to trot out there and stuff. But in order to have that type of success, you got to let these kids play. And you don't know what you have if you don't let these kids play, because you're so adamant on letting the veterans play. This is the issue with Detroit right now, is that for so many years they've been so reliant on the veterans that they do not let these kids play. You're kind of blocking a blessing here, you know what I mean? Because these kids might turn out to have some type of a success, that could push you forward.
I mean, realistically,
NHL time in order to make that development.
I was actually listening to something. I don't remember exactly what it was, but they were saying basically you had Yzerman, you drafted Yzerman, and then came the Russian Five and also Lidstrom and those guys, and they rode that for 10 years or so, a little bit longer. And then it got extended, because likely after that, a lot of people were even saying, like, what the hell is going to happen to the Red Wings? And obviously in those days I wasn't into the media and everything like that. So, but I'm guessing in those days people were like, what's going to happen when Yzerman and Lidstrom and those guys retire? Well, you got a blessing in Henrik Zetterberg and Pavel Datsyuk, and it extended it another 10 years. That's really what happened. And now you're in a situation where, like, Yeah, you have
you
young
tried-
players. You've tried,
You tried
and it's not going to work.
You tried band-aiding a lot of things to preserve a streak, and you tried doing all these band-aids and stuff to try to win a cup. Look, if you're not contending for a cup, but if you're in a playoff spot, rock with what you got. You know what I mean? Unless you know for sure you can get something that'll help. You know what I mean? Look at how many, honestly, you got so many things that are going wrong with this team, the bad contracts and everything. How do you know, again, you got to go with something that's going to rock with you to help you win a cup. I feel like what year? There were 2 years. There were 2 certain years where Detroit could have honestly won a cup. The 2013 season was one. Okay, that was one. The other season when you played Tampa and you went 7 with Tampa, that was another.
Yeah.
The rest of the years, what have you had? You got in by the skin of your teeth you got in by the skin of your teeth because of the kids. Yeah. That wasn't veteran play, that was kids, but that's all I got to say on that, because I could go on and on all night with it.
Yeah, and
I mean, just quickly adding on to what Matt said. I mean, at this point, what do you have to lose by playing the kids? I mean, obviously the veterans aren't getting the job done, and I think so. Let the kids play, and I think, goodness forbid, they actually help that the team actually improves with the young players and everything. So I mean. You might as well try it.
They literally have nothing to lose by playing the kids.
You don't.
Exactly.
Zero.
Why are you not doing it?
You have everything to gain.
This overwrite crap is not working. I'm sorry. The overwrite crap, it's not. You got to stop it. You got to stop it. I understand because you're getting ice time, and really you have no choice because of the contracts that you signed these guys to. But at a point in time, you got to let these kids play. If you got a kid who got to play top 6 minutes, put him in there and let him play top 6 minutes then. Quit putting me.
Well, not only that, but for me, it's the way I say it, if you sit the veteran for the younger kids to play, that also might spark the veteran, and I think it's kind of light a fire under his ass, and I think to start performing better themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what it comes down to is, and not to go into the whole rebuild talk, but it literally goes into the fact of, yes, they tried to band-aid it, but they also, and don't let this go too far, but they also had a chance to right the entire ship. They had $10 million in cap space. Not this offseason, but this past offseason. Not this one that just passed, but the one before that, where they signed Franz Nielsen. If they didn't sign Franz Nielsen, they would be in a pretty good situation right now. They ended up signing Abdelkader as well. They'd be in a good situation. They'd have $5 or $6 million in cap space. They'd probably have Anthony Ciu signed. Everything would be all set. They had a chance to hit the reset button, and they failed. They absolutely failed, and that is one thing.
Well, I can't say.
I know
the Franz Nielsen thing was wholeheartedly a bad thing. It was bad in cap space. Yes, it was. But he was the Wings' only all-star, and he did perform pretty well. So, I mean, but I get what you're saying, too, Tyler. If they don't sign him, if they don't sign Franz Nielsen and stick with the kids and let the kids play, you're set. You're fine. You're going on a positive road.
How about another thing? What if you don't trade that Datsuk contract and you draft Jacob Chikrin? You might not have a defense problem either.
That's true.
In hindsight,
how about the fact that Holland had 3 chances this offseason to clean up the cap space? Come on.
Yeah,
it's not.
I can understand the last 2 years because, again, you're going after Stamkos. You're trying to go after Stamkos, which You didn't get him, but I understood why you tried to go after him. But again, yeah, I agree. Go ahead, Rick. I'm sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, but you know, we were just talking about that. You know, last year they had the Datsuk contract. They moved to Arizona, and they were able to get Franz Nielsen. What if they, you know, like you said, if you get Jacob Chikrin, you know, that's looking pretty solid on the back end. Yeah, you got his season got cut short due to injury. But hey, let's also not forget that Ken Holland had 3 opportunities this offseason to clear cap space, and he literally didn't do anything. He had the expansion draft. It may cost him a draft pick. Like I wrote an article on this too. There is opportunities where they could have sent a draft pick or a pick and a prospect to get a good contract off the books. They could have moved a guy like a serviceable guy like Franz Nielsen, who they did sign. They could have got him if they could have got him to waive. He could have gone to Vegas. They had 2 buyouts because they had the buyout at the end of the Stanley Cup Finals. Plus, they had the buyout, which is what I was kind of scratching my head about with the whole Thomas Tatar thing. Why do you take him to arbitration? Well, then you go to the arbitrator. I didn't even realize this until I actually read it someplace else. Hey, what's going on here? We've got an extra buyout opportunity, and we're exercising no opportunity there to clear some cap space. So, you know,
and that's on the front. That's on the general manager.
Here, but you know, I know we've been trying to be pumping the tires of the guys who actually deserve it, but you know, kind of we went a little bit sideways here. But yeah, you know, Ken Holland is ultimately the reason why there's so much negative here in the team. The team itself has got lots of positives in Grand Rapids, lots of positives on the Wings. On the Wings roster right now, one guy that's not still signed, unfortunately. But you know, when you get those pieces all together, and if you give, yeah, seeing that comment there, Kenny. You know, once we give these guys some chance to actually play, yeah, you're right. We got a decent team that you know could be a team that gains some experience and actually does something.
Absolutely. So with that, the live show is actually, we're going to wrap this up here. I thank you guys for joining us. I'm going to let you guys plug your Twitter handles. Matt, can you plug your Twitter handle, please?
Yes, you can follow me at TrueBlueLowry21. Sorry, I'm getting calls, but you can follow me at TrueBlueLowry21.
That's all right, Coach. Rick, I want you to plug your Twitter handle.
Well, I've got 2 of them, guys. So the first one is at 40 Zetterberg 40, and the other one's for my my Cardboard Devil business, sports cards and collectibles. So at the Cardboard Devil. Feel free to give me a follow on either one of them. If you're a sports card or collectibles type person, give us a follow. We're not yet open, but we are opening up here in Canada, so all of our American audience will be able to take advantage of that 20 extra cents on the buck if they start ordering from us online.
Pretty awesome. And Kenny, I want you to shout out your Twitter handle as well, please.
You can follow me at sportskenny_ on Twitter.
Okay, great. And you can follow me on Twitter at Tyler_Sealy. You can also follow the Winged Octopus on Facebook, or you can like us on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram. We actually have a Snapchat as well. It's Winged Octopus. You can just type that in. Our Instagram is actually going pretty well. And the Snapchat, you guys are going to be able to take it over during the regular season. So I think it's going to be awesome. So everyone, you guys have a good night and stay classy, Hockey Town.